So, I'm going to introduce Ty to you guys. Who's up here? He's an internet junkie. I want to tell you a story real quick before we bring him on. I think it's really interesting that our area, the state of Alabama, just real estate in general. I've been doing a lot of stuff with marketing, with branding. We do lots of content, put out lots of content, we put out lots of videos as well. And I stumble across this guy when I type in Birmingham, real estate, content, videos, podcasts, stuff like that. I type in that kind of stuff, and this guy keeps popping up. And I'm like, and I watch some of this stuff, I'm like, why does he keep coming up from Birmingham? I couldn't understand it. I started doing some digging. It's like, lo and behold, this guy is from Birmingham, Alabama, but he kind of operates on a national scale. I'm just curious, who has ever heard of Flipman? Who is here specifically to see this guy? About half of you are. And I think it's really interesting when I discovered this guy. I'm like, I just picked up the phone, I called him, I'm like, what's up, man? And he's like, what's up? I'm like, you live in Birmingham? I said, this is Brian Trippe. And he's like, who? I'm like, man, come on. We got to do some stuff together. So we kind of collaborated on a podcast that he was on maybe a month or so ago, or a couple months ago now. And it's funny that podcast episode, and we make videos out of them as well, it's one of our highest viewed videos and our most listened to and downloaded podcast because of this guy. Ty the Flipman Taylor has a YouTube channel with over 20,000 subscribers. 29,000 subscribers. We have 400. Just kind of nationally known as a wholesaling guru. Been doing it for a long time. Ty, I want you to stand up. I want to introduce you. Everybody, welcome to Huntsville, Alabama, Mr. Ty the Flipman Taylor.
Who was he talking about? Wow, glad to be here. Brian convinced me to come out and speak to you guys, and so I'm going to go into how I got started. If you're not familiar with it or whatever, and then I'll get into, I guess, just a unique thing that I think about what wholesaling is and why some people can do it successfully and why they can't, which it really just boils down to lead generation. So first thing you have to know about me is that I'm an entrepreneur first, all right? But I'm not one of these, what I consider a late bloomer to the game, because most entrepreneurs, they're doing it when they're 8 or 9 years old, so that wasn't the thing for me. All I cared about at those ages and in the teenage years was just playing basketball and football or whatever, and how cute some girl was or whatever. So that's the only thing really mattered to me. And went to college. Well, first I'm from a small town in South Alabama, less than 1,000 people as far as population. And went to college, ended up at UAB in Birmingham, and I'm not even sure what struck my interest to say, hey, I'm going to finish college, more so to put a smile on my mom's face, but I don't think I can work for someone long term. I knew I had to until I figured out something that I could generate income enough to take care of myself and who are the people I care about. So with me, my first experience with any type of entrepreneurship was, which I don't think I've ever even told this, but one of my friends that I grew up with, a guy I looked up to then and now, when in the neighborhood that I grew up, and he introduced me to Amway. And I didn't even know what multi-level marketing was at that time and stuff. And so the way he was going to go about it, or at least he thought he was, is that, of course, it's all product based. You got to have something to sell when you're doing multi-level marketing, not kicking it or whatever. You got to sell something, whether it's pencils or a drink or whatever. So on all those products, he was looking at it from a sense that he could take all these products and sell them to high schools and middle schools or whatever. But the guy that was putting on the presentation, he kept trying to bring him back to, you need to get more people in. That's how you really make the money. The products are just the sub of it. Oh, well, I got it. He didn't get it. So fast forward, that didn't work out for me. And that was my first introduction or experience with multi-level marketing. So I came up with the brilliant idea that I was going to start, I was still in college, I was going to take money that I should have been using for college, student loan money. People say I should have stopped saying that, but I think the statute of limitations, ran out on that. But I had this brilliant idea that I was going to take student loan money and use it to start buying used cars. So I figured out how you get a dealer's license, and I'm not even sure before the internet how we even figure things out now. You know what I'm saying? So I figured out how to get a dealer's license. Got a dealer's license, started going into the auctions in Moody at Odessa, and it'd just be hundreds of cars out there. And they have like a runway where you can test drive the cars or whatever, and those cars will look brand new. I don't care if it was a 15-year-old car. And the problem with that is, if you're not mechanically inclined like I wasn't, you can easily get, your hat handed to you. And I got it handed to me on pretty much every car I bought out there. But that didn't last long. So fast forward a couple of years later, this was in 1995, my brother, two of the cousins I grew up with, and one of my brother's friends, we drove to I guess it would be considered spring break to Daytona Beach. And one of my brother's friends drove up from Orlando, and he would start talking about that he started a mobile car wash business. And in Orlando, he had made 6 figures. That's all I needed to hear. I couldn't wait till I got back to Birmingham. So I purchased a baby blue passenger van where the seats had already been taken out, a 100-gallon water tank, a pressure washer, and some signage to let people know that what we were doing. And I was in business, just like that. So my cousin and a guy that we grew up with, that summer, which was very hot, we started washing cars, showing up at barbershops, hair salons, place of employment of people that I knew, and we would just pull up and start washing cars. So we made enough money to justify it. But the problem is, even though we live in the South, it does get cold. So the first morning I woke up and it was 40 degrees, I said, I can't do this. That was the end of that for the most part. So I sold the van or whatever and gave the 100-gallon water tank and the pressure washer to my brother. Okay, so fast forward to maybe like 98, 99, I was introduced to prepaid legal. So back to MLM. And I'd made just enough money to cover what I spent in it, so it was only a couple $100. So, one of my friends, which actually he's trying to get into real estate now, he and his now wife were going to school to become real estate agents. And the guy that normally taught the class wasn't there, and the substitute, he didn't talk about being an agent. He talked about investing in real estate and creative ways of investing in real estate with no money down. The guy's name is Don Wheeler. I ended up going to some of his monthly seminars later on, but I didn't know at the time that's who did that. But so that was in October 2002, and so I didn't act on it that time. My friend told me because he knew how my mind worked or whatever. So fast forward a couple of months later, December 27th, 2002, I was at my mom's house, waiting on, just after Christmas, waiting on her to prepare breakfast, and I saw one of Carlton Sheets, halfway through one of Carlton Sheets, no money down commercials, which, of course, it looked like a lot of y'all know who I'm referring to. Yeah. And his, they don't tell you anything on the infomercial, but hey, Carlton, let me make $15,000 on this deal. And so I had seen them over the years, obviously, and so I went up the dial and found one from beginning to end. Again, they don't tell you anything, but at the end of that program, I thought to myself, he can't be lying about all of this, right? So back then, my mom didn't have internet service, so I waited till I got back to Birmingham, and I went to this this message board that I used to frequent called, it was ablake.net. I don't even think the site is up anymore, but I asked the question, does Carlton Sheets program really work? And only one person replied. He said, yes, it does, but Ron LeGrand's course is better. So I did a search for Ron's course on Google, and I found his site, and for his entire package of different techniques was $1,500. Back then I was working at Bell South in customer service, collections, where we answer the phone and we may help people with their bills or whatever. And so $1,500 was a lot of money for me, so they had a condensed version of it for $69.99, which is basically just a teaser, just different excerpts of him talking about different techniques or whatever. And I ordered that with shipping. It was $80, and so it came in cassette tape form. That's how long it's been. And so I listened to that, and all it did is just like convince me I gotta do this. So if I had to get a second job to save that $1,500, I would. So a couple of days later, I thought about eBay, and I did a search for his name, and that same package was available, as far as an auction. So I lost the auction, and the guy that was running the auction, back then you could do this with eBay, the seller reached out to me by email and asked me did I wanted a copy of the courses, where he just basically took the CDs and made copies of it. So obviously, So we we agreed on $400, which still was a struggle for me, and but I just felt I had to do that. To date that's still the best $400 I've ever spent. Because from there I got the course, and there was just so much information. There was wholesaling, it was lease options, it was subject tos, it was he called it retailing, but that's the buy, fix, and flip. He had one more module in there. I think it was called FISBOs. I went from knowing zero about real estate to just being totally overwhelmed with all the information. Now I still had a lot of questions. Of course I couldn't contact Ron. Especially I bought basically a bootleg version of his course, and even if I paid $1,500, I'm sure I couldn't contact him. But what stuck out to me, even though I didn't know what I was doing, was wholesaling and lease options and bandit signs. All right, so because I'm not a person, if I have to sit there on the phone and just pound out calls, which I've tried to do in other businesses that I tried even before I discovered real estate, it's just not going to work for me. I'm going to after one or two no's, I'm going to go home. I'm going to get in the bed. I'm going to be in the fetal position. So my little feeling is going to be hurt. But if I have someone calling me, that's different, because they want something from me, and now we'll operate on a different plane, especially if I know what I'm talking about. So I ordered some bandit signs. I paid $250 for 50 bandit signs, which is drastic overpayment, but at that time I didn't know. And so picked them up on a Friday, put them out on a Sunday morning, all 50 of them, and the very first two calls I received were deals, right? One of them was a lease option opportunity, and the other one was a wholesale opportunity. The story behind the lease option opportunity, which probably could have put me out of the business, but the guy called me. He inherited a property that his mom passed away and left him the property, but he still had a mortgage on it. He didn't live in the house. He had a mortgage on the house he was living in, so he couldn't afford both mortgage payments. And so he called me, and I did understand the process enough to know what he owed versus what I would needed to wholesale it was too much, but it would possibly fit a lease option opportunity because the property was livable. It did need some repairs, but it was livable. And so we agreed, and I explained to him, just the entire process of how a lease option works, at least the way I understood it anyway, that I'm going to put your property under contract, okay, with a lease with an option to buy. I'm going to make the monthly payment of the current mortgage, and I'm going to place a tenant buyer in the property at a little higher rate. They're going to give me a down payment, and within a year to maybe 3 years, I'll cash you out of the property because they'll get traditional financing. He was fine with that. He just wanted that payment off his back. Okay, so I advertised the property, and this lady called me, told me I advertised that I wanted $5,000 down. she contacted me and said she had the money. And so, right just down from your office, Brian, on Roebuck Parkway. What is that? That's the main drag? What is it? Yeah. There used to be an old Charlie's right there where the Mexican restaurant is on the hill next, not far from Chick-fil-A. And so I met her at that old Charlie's, and she put $100 bills in my hand. That was the most money I had ever seen cash before, outside of being a tax return or something. And so, wow, I could have stopped then, but I had failed at so many things before. I'm like, man, this stuff really works. Okay, so the house needed some repairs, and through just conversations with the owner, he said he did some handyman work on the side or whatever. So I'm thinking I'm creating a win-win situation. So I said, well, Mr. I can't even remember his name, he can do the repairs that you want in the house before you move in. So you all can just meet over there. So I set that up. Also, one of the guys that I worked with did mortgages as a second income. And so the owner of the property that I had under as far as the lease option, he wanted to refinance his property to lower his rate on the property that he was actually living in. So again, I thought I was creating another win-win. So through just conversations with him, he let him know that, hey, Ty already has someone that's going to move in your house, and the lady's already given him $5,000. What did he tell him that for? He felt that if he was not owed half of that $5,000, all of it. So when he met the lady over there at the house, he came over there angry and let her know Tyrone does not own this house. He was going to call the police and to get off of her property. So quite naturally, the lady thought she had been scammed, right? So she called me, crying or whatever, and to explain the situation. I asked her where was she at right now. I'll bring her money, and I apologize to her, even though I had already spent $700 of it, so I had to recoup that. So I carried her money, explained to her she was fine with it or whatever. And so I just had to call him, because I wanted to, give him a piece of my mind and also find out what happened. So basically, he was still angry with it. Man, that was my money. I said, whatever, I can't remember his name. I explained to you how this process worked. You needed someone to relieve you of that payment. And so he and I just got into an argument. The long story short, I insulted him because I found out he was a pastor or whatever. And I told him, I said, I don't know who you're leading, but I feel sorry for that flock or whatever. What I say that for? He's like, if I ever see you again, it's not going to be pretty. And so I could have gotten out of business then. All right, but the second call that I received that I was explaining was two sisters that their mom had passed, left them a house like a lot of people do, if you all are familiar with, is that we're not going to sell mom's house, too many memories there, so they decided to become landlords and rent it out to relatives, and you know how that went. They're going to start counting your money, paying you when they want to, tearing up the property, then you got to get them out, fix the property again, so on. So after going through that in about 3 or 4 years, they were motivated to sell. They were tired landlords. So we agreed upon $20,000. I'm not even sure how I knew that was a good number. I just felt that it was because I didn't really have any data that I was going by. So I advertised the property in the newspaper. You know how long ago that's been. We don't even use newspapers now to do anything. And so this guy called me, this agent called me and said he had a buyer for the property. So I explained I didn't own it. I was wholesaling. And so he said, okay, that's fine. He said, but in order for me to bring my buyer to the table, I'm going to have to get half of that, that $5,000 assignment fee. So I was fine with, what's half of zero. And so, anyway, so I met those guys in a park, as a matter of fact, the Summit parking lot right there on 280. They gave me a $500 earnest money check, and 10 days later, we closed it, so that first deal was $2,500. I didn't really know what was going on because we were using their attorney, and the sellers were happy. Taylor, how much did you get? Like that. We walking out, and wow, I just could not believe that something like that was possible. It might as well have been $250,000. Now, from that point, that was in March of 2003 until I didn't do my next deal until June And the girl I was dating at the time, 'cause I was still riding high on that 2,500, she's like, don't you think you need to do another one at some point? You know, so I did another one, just the rest is history there from there. But what I learned very early, like I say, what attracted me to wholesaling, or just creative ways of doing real estate. Obviously, your cash and credit really didn't matter to wholesale, but is that if I did an effective job of marketing, then I could generate enough leads to do deals. And so I'm a big bandit sign guy and still am, even though a couple other things are becoming a little bit more attractive to me. But I was fortunate enough to find someone to do bandit signs cheaper. And so I guess what I really want to talk about is that I talk to people all over the country, and they want to work with me, whether paid or unpaid or whatever, in whatever situation. So dealing with them, especially if they've already tried to do it, one of the first questions that I'm going to always ask someone is that, what are you doing to generate leads? And so they'll start to go into, I drive for dollars. That's fine. You know, that's the only thing that your income and resources will allow, but that's going to be a very difficult way to find deals. Or they may say, I searched Craigslist. That's fine also. Going to be a very difficult way to find deals. Not impossible, but a very difficult way to find deals. Or Zillow, other sites like that. I say, now, if you want to reduce the frustration of this business, because it's going to be frustrating, I don't care what you're doing, is that if you come up with an effective marketing plan that you know your budget will allow you to do consistently, you will do deals. Because you find great real estate deals, as many of you all know, you can get paid on it in some form or fashion from someone, whether it's wholesale or you're holding it yourself or buying, fixing, or flipping. So I'm going to normally give them three methods that I like to use to, especially now, to generate deals. As I said, bandit signs and direct mail, and then cold calling. Cold calling is slowly becoming my number one option. And I'm still like sort of in test mode on some things, even though I've done some deals on them, but I'm trying to get it, create a system that I can duplicate in other markets. But with cold calling, the first thing you got to do, no different than with direct mail, is that you need a list. And I'm going to share a couple of things here that I haven't really even shared with students because I haven't perfected it yet or whatever. But the same list that you can purchase for direct mail, which is normally an absentee list, and which is only, you don't know what absentee means, you can only have one homestead. Any additional real estate property, special residential, will be considered absentee. And the reason you target absentee lists is because the probability of someone wanting to sell that property, number one, is high, and the probability of them wanting to sell the property at a significant discount is much higher than the property that they actually live in. All right, so you reach out to them through direct mail, and I said that, and cold calling. And then obviously you can have a strong internet presence, but that can be so expensive. That's the reason I didn't bring it up. With the social media, just to sidetrack, I'm personally still trying to figure out Facebook ads because they're still really inexpensive, but a lot of tension is there. But targeting property owners there that want to sell, I haven't figured that out. Anyone has out here, I would love to talk to you. But going back to the cold calling, the main thing is being able to get a list of phone numbers. Now, one of the places that you can get phone numbers from that I've found is it's called datafinder.com. Now, if you upload a list of we'll just say 1,000, it'll probably produce about 60% numbers for you. But understand now, all of those numbers are not going to be accurate for any number of reasons. So we'll just say out of 1,000, you're going to get 600 numbers. We're going to say probably, just from my experience or the time frame that I've been doing it, probably half of those will probably be the actual number. So about 300 or so, about 30% of the numbers are going to be accurate. Now, the hard part is getting them on the phone. All right, so there are different methods of doing it. You can just sit there, you have the list, and just pound them out with your actual cell phone or whatever. Or you can do, there's some automatic dialers out there, either direct or they can do the voicemail drop if it's a cell phone or whatever. And then there's some obviously CRMs out there that are automatic dialers that are built in with a CRM that will dial for you. So you just Google that. So yeah, exactly. Or virtual assistants to do it also. Now I started out doing it a little harder. I actually had my sister, but she needed a little money. Instead of me just giving her money, give her something to do that could produce both of us money or whatever. So I actually had her just research and find the numbers initially or whatever. Then I found them at a couple of websites or whatever. So, and now I have her actually making the calls. From my experience, if someone is physically calling individuals, it's going to take between 6 and 7 times to get that individual on the phone, right? And then obviously from there they're going to have to want to sell. Then from there it's going to have to the price that they want to sell is going to have to make sense. But bandit signs are cheap. Direct mail is really not cheap in reality because of how many people you have to send. But if you purchase an actual absentee list, right? And we're just going to say $1,000. I mean, a list of 1,000 absentee owners. That'll generally probably cost you anywhere from whatever that costs, maybe $200. I'm just using listsource.com as an example, and that's where I normally buy my list from. To get that list appended, it's called appended phone numbers. The service that I recommend, that's going to minimum they're going to charge is $99. So basically, you can have a list that you can start calling for $300, right? And so that puts anyone in the game. $300 may be a lot for some people, but if you need to start driving Uber to raise that money, that can put anyone in the game immediately, and you can just start dialing those numbers. You don't have to use those different services or software to dial. You can just pick up your actual phone and start dialing. Again, that's the fastest way to start generating leads, in my opinion. Now, because bandit signs, even if you put bandit signs out, if you've never done it before, there's going to be a method to the madness on that, because depending on the market, they may just come down immediately. And then some people are just not comfortable with them because they are illegal. There's no question about that. I don't care what market, city, county, state, they're illegal. The way Brian explained, it's like going 75 in a 70 mile per hour speed zone or whatever. But you have to just take the risk on that. You got a question?
Out of those 1,000 entries that you buy, how many are valid leads that you can actually work, and how many do you get something out of?
Well, that's what I'm saying is that just using Data Finder as an example, it's going to probably pull about 600 names from me using it enough. 60% of the list that you upload is going to probably pull about 600 phone numbers. I can't name phone numbers. Out of that, probably half of those are going to be the person's actual number that you're trying to contact. All right, so that's 300. So now it's just going to boil down. Can you get them on the phone or whatever?
How many of those 300 are
getting on the phone? If you're persistent with, like I said, it's going to take on average probably 6 to 7 phone calls to get them on the phone. I'm going to say you're going to probably be able to talk to half of those, with a certain time frame. But it's just going to all depend on how much you're putting into it. Because you're going to call people at different time frames throughout the day. Some people you'll call in the morning because, that's better for them, midday. But the evenings are normally going to be the best time that you're going to reach individuals between the hours of about 6 and 8 p.m. in reality.
And how many of those, say 150, do you think you'd get a deal out of?
At least 3.
Okay.
At least 3. But it's not easy. It's not easy. It's not easy. Be prepared to get cussed out. That's going to happen.
Yeah.
How did you get my number? Whatever. Be prepared for that. But that's slowly, as I said, becoming my preference as far as if I had to pick between the 3 main ones: direct mail, bandit signs, and cold calling. That's slowly becoming number 1, just because of the immediate success and the low cost to at least get the list. And it's just going to depend on who's making the calls for it. But if it's just you, then that's your cost. It's $300. just using that 1,000 as the number as far as the list of absentee owners that you purchased, whatever. So, but at the end of the day, it just boils down to lead generation. Ideally, in my opinion, you want as many methods as possible to generate leads. The main thing, and I learned this in the seminar I went to Brian's back. When was that, the last seminar you had, Brian?
March 2nd, 3rd, 4th.
Yeah, and I went on that Sunday, and I was only there about an hour or so, and he talked about tracking. I've been doing it, but I didn't know I was doing it. So once I knew I need to be doing it, he recommended Bumber, B-U-M-B-E-R instead of number, Bumber, where you can get multiple phone numbers. You need a number for your direct mail campaigns. You need a number just for bandit signs. You need a number for the cold calling, because people will call you back, especially if you leave a message or even if you don't leave a message. So you need multiple phone numbers in order to track what you're doing, to either see that it's working or not working. If it is working, to compound what you're doing, or if it's not working, what adjustments you need to make, or just get rid of it altogether. So tracking is going to be probably, when you start talking about lead generation, just as important as anything.
Quick question about that part. How long would you consistently go about a campaign, a marketing campaign, to generate leads before you decided to change it with that tracking number? Vince, if I'm doing bandit signs, would I do that for 3 months and then see how it works?
Well, okay, we'll start with bandit signs. His question was, how long do you go before you change something if you don't see that it's working? All right, with bandit signs, for me, once you start doing bandit signs, you'll just start noticing other people's bandit signs, whether it's real estate related or not, right? And so I've paid people to do it before, and I actually pay a guy now to do it, but I actually drive him around and I just point, don't go do that. But we've done it so long, he just already knows now. But I drive him around. The reason I do that, no one, he doesn't have a car. But the other reason that I do it, I make sure that it's done right. It also keeps me out there in the field or whatever, and I can notice other things that's going on or whatever. But I'm always noticing people putting out signs, and it amazes me that you do understand that if you don't put a sign in an intersection where there's a traffic light and or a stop sign, the probability of your message getting read a lot is low, because people are traveling at a rate of speed. Even if it's only 25 miles per hour, they're not going to be able to see your message and record the phone number also to be able to contact you. So you gotta at least start at the basic of knowing where and how to put out signs. The other thing is that one of the issues, and I'm gonna get to your question, I just have to get to the issues of it. The other issue is that a lot of people, when they first start wanting to put out bandit signs, hey, I want to put them in areas where nobody else exists, right? You do know bandit signs are nothing new. Now you can always test in areas, right? But for the most part, if they're not in areas, and then the way most markets are, is that in the suburban areas, we'll just say the A, B areas, normally you're just not going to be able to get away with it. Just not, for a number of reasons. There's realtors, the people that live there, the local municipality, a combination of things. They're just going to come down. They'll literally come down the same day or whatever, or you really may get fined in those areas. So you have to understand that. So what I try to tell people is to place signs. If is this your first experience with bandit signs, drive your market, get outside of your comfort zone, right? Drive your market, notice where signs are, right? And you're going to place signs in those same areas, because those guys have already tested the market. They know where they can get away with bandit signs long term, because that people need to see your message over and over again in most cases to get the response that you need. All right, so first thing, you got to just know what you're doing. That's what I'm getting to. So now, to troubleshoot what your issues are, when I have students contact me and they say, well, I put my bandit signs out and I'm not getting any calls. So the first question I'm asking, how many have you put out? Oh, I only put out 15. That's not enough. That's easy. Wow. If you're really trying to do it, a minimum of 50 a week. A minimum of 50 a week. All right. So I'm troubleshooting that situation. So what do your signs say? All right. You don't have much room, whether either they're 12 by I'm sorry, 18 by 24, or 12 by 18, or 9 by 24, which is the ones I use, because they're more of a rectangular view, but they're the same square inches as 12 by 18 or whatever. So We Buy Houses phone number. I have just a small strip that it says call or text, sale as is, but just a very small strip or whatever. But some people have their just too much information. And the We Buy Houses part, which is the most important, the phone number, are so small that affects your sign being read the way it should be. So I'm always ask, what do your signs say? Send me a picture of your sign. All right, so now it's going to boil down to how long are they staying up? Are you checking on your signs? All right, so going through those just couple of questions, I can then advise someone on say this is what you're doing wrong or whatever. It's not brain surgery, but it is some skill or a process you need to go through to make sure you're getting the best results from them. Now with direct mail, I recently did a direct mail campaign, and that deal that you and I did, Brian, came from the direct mail campaign I did, but I wish I would have bought one of them here. And so I started using this company. They reached out to me. They wanted me to become an affiliate, and what they do is they put the actual owner's picture of the property on the postcard. You know, direct mail is all about getting your message read, and so it starts with attention, right? Most people sort, according to the direct mailers, sort their mail over the trash can. So you're trying to avoid the trash can. Mm-hmm. So if someone says, "Wow, this guy got a picture of my house," are they crazy? So they may call you or whatever. So I've been using that recently. I'm not a big direct mail person because it's expensive or whatever. In the center, even though it produced a lead in the paper, that one deal that Brian and I did, I spent $2,200 on it, but the deal Brian and I did paid for it, over quite a bit. And I really wasn't prepared for the influx of calls that I received from it, so I really wasted money. And even though I got my money back with profit, I really wasted money because I wasn't prepared for the calls that I received, because I sent out 3,500 mailers, spending $2,200. So, you have a question, ma'am? I'm sorry.
Yes, your bandit signs. How did you find the person that puts them out? How much do you pay him for put out and pick up?
No pickup. But well, initially I advertised in the gig section of Craigslist, and I was advertising for someone to hold signs for me. And I have a sign that's this tall. I think it's 5 by 3, so I guess it's like this and like that. And that's what I originally was hired him for. And the sign just says, just some huge letters, We Buy Houses, and the phone number is at the top, call or text. That's what I originally hired him for. And so what happened was that the first guy I hired was just amazing. But he had so many family issues that it didn't last. This guy, he would literally just walk back and forth with the sign, holding it up, shaking it and everything. I was just getting just that one intersection over there near where Brian's office is. I was getting call after call. Man, I said, boy, I hit a home run. But he had so many family issues, and he had 10 kids.
Oh, goodness.
They were living in a hotel. They were homeless. And the first day that I hired him, I think it was, I know what I had to go buy him some gloves because that corrugated plastic. And that particular sign, because it's so large, it needs to be thicker than what normal bandit signs are, so it would cut your hands. So I went and bought him some gloves. I went to like a Dollar General to buy him some gloves, but by the time I got back, he didn't think I was coming back. I'm gonna leave my sign there. So his wife, he had talked to his wife, and he said, "Man, my wife said she didn't believe you were coming back, and that you were not going to pay me." So it sort of upset me, just me. I said, "I'll tell you what, man, we'll forget about this." I said, "You go home or whatever." So he just looked just destroyed, you know what I'm saying? So I was about to pull out the parking lot, and I thought I'm gonna get this guy another shot, right? Okay, so I gave him another chance. I explained, I said, man, I can't tell you how to run your family, but you should have checked that at the door. You should have never told me that, what your wife said, or whatever. I said, I'm going to pay you. Why would I leave my sign out? This sign cost me, I think the sign cost me $300. I'm not gonna leave it with you. So anyway, so we had a conversation, man, he said, my wife gets me fired off every job I'm like, so I didn't believe it, or whatever. And so, anyway, so it just, every day, it was something. From me going to the grocery store and buying his whole family, groceries, to he initially had a car, then he didn't, I had to go pick him up every day, to his wife calling him every 30 minutes or whatever, and I was still just hanging in there. One of my friends, she was just dying laughing at me because I was bending to her. She said, why are you still dealing with this guy? I said, he works so hard when he's there. You know what I'm saying? Because I know how difficult that is to find. And so, because he would just be out there 6 and 7 hours and hadn't even taken a break, and he was only weighing 130 pounds. And just out there just back and forth with my son. Because I was watching, I was parked somewhere and just watch him and whatever. And so, and like I said, I was getting leads, So all I could think is I need me 10 more guys like this around Birmingham. So it just came to a head that it just wasn't gonna work. It just wasn't. And I never did even get a deal from it, So, but my point is that I tried to hire other people to do it. And so I did hire another guy, which is still working for me. And then this other guy, the one that rides in the car with me, one day it just clicked to me. I said, why don't I just take him out and let him put out signs with me or whatever. And it's probably almost been a year now since we've been doing it that way. Because I was doing it myself before.
How much do you pay him per week? Is it per hour?
I just pay him $10 an hour. And we'll go out 3 to 4 hours per day, and we'll do it 2 or 3 days a week. So some days it just depends on what else I have going on. We might not even be out in an hour, and I'll still pay him $30, because he needs the money or whatever. And I'm just.
So with the bandit signs, do you try to differentiate your bandit signs from your competitors? Like a typical bandit sign you'll see says "We buy houses" with the phone number. Do you? My question is, would you try to switch it up from your competitors or keep it the same?
Well, most people think that's what you want to do. Yeah. You're so limited on the space, right? And you have to convey the message. I buy houses, we buy houses, cash for houses. I've done it all, man.
All right.
I've even did pink for breast cancer. I've done that before and wasted money because the sign lady told me they're gonna fade, Tyrone, and they did. She said this color is not going to hold up in sun. So I've done it all, man. I've tested it all. You just have to keep it simple.
Gotcha.
Or whatever. I know everybody wants to be different, but you don't have that much space to work with, and you got to have that shotgun, broad approach message.
But I'll tell you this, just because I work in the same market as Ty does, his bandit signs do look different than everyone else in our market. I think he's done a really good job because he uses the kind of the long rectangle ones, and most everybody else uses 18 by 20. We use 18 by 24 or 12 by 18. He used, what is it again, 9 by
24.
9 by 24, so they're like long like this. We buy house phone number, and another thing he does a really good job with is he puts them at off ramps on the interstates, and they stay up.
Yeah, they'll stay up, and now you can get into you'll get into some areas that you normally can't get into. They'll stay up there versus if you're in the actual streets of a particular suburban area or whatever. And I use red and blue also on white background. So.
Do you pick the signs up, or do you just let them get pulled?
If I had to pick the signs up, I wouldn't even do signs. That's me now. I'm not telling you not to do that. If I had to pick the signs up, I wouldn't do signs.
Has anybody ever called you from the city?
Yeah, I got a call recently from a guy that works for the county. And so with county works, I guess they have different regions that they are managing or supervising. And on the eastern side, over there, Brian, he's like, hey, this ain't gonna work, man. you know, I've been seeing your signs and others, and I'm new sheriff. Basically, we saying a new sheriff in town. I'm not, you know, so I'm gonna put them on. That's fine, it's cool, whatever. Birmingham's a large market, so that guy's called me. The mayor of Center Point has called me once. His assistant called me, and then the sheriff department called me. When the sheriff department called me, he called laughing. He said, "Man, please don't take these signs out. They are worrying me to death." You know, so, but that's 5 and 15 years. I can count on my hand. 5 and 15. Oh, I've had a couple of people call me, you know, like people that live in the community. I had this lady call me, and I had like a 10-minute conversation with her, just me just being stupid. But, you know, because I was trying to explain to her, I was being a little sarcastic, but, you know, she called me at the wrong time. And I was trying to explain to her that, man, we are helping your community, called in West End. And I said, because we're buying houses and fixing them up. I said, which one do you prefer? She said, well, can you do it another way? I said, no, we really can't do it another way.
Okay, give me some referrals.
But I was just messing with it. So, and then I had over in the Norwood area, I had 2 ladies call me back to back. I only put up 2 signs or whatever, call me back to back in Norwood and say, everyone that you put up, we're going to take down. So if you want to continue to waste money, this was just 3 weeks ago, you're going to be wasting money. So, you know, just those, you know, so what is that, 10 maybe, right at 10 over a 15-year period. So, but each market is different. So, and again, you have to just figure out where they'll hold up. So, you know, but they're so cheap, man. And I had a student out in Fresno, California. I wish I could put it up on the screen. Sent me a check. Well, no, because I don't have this information blocked out. But sent me a copy of a check from a bandit sign, $67,000. You know, what is that, $1.50 sign? You know. I don't know many businesses that'll produce that type of return or whatever. And he just said, man, he changed my family life or whatever. So now you're out there in California, those are common, those type of wholesale checks because of the high prices of houses, you know. That ain't that common in Birmingham. You know, you take off a 0 on those. So lead generation, guys, that's the name of the game. You know, it's lead generation. You know, buyers are great and you gotta have them. But you know, one lead can generate a buyer's list. One great lead can generate a buyer's list in a market or whatever. Because at the end of the day, you're only going to be, they're not going to just sit there and have conversations with you if you don't have anything to offer or whatever. So
I'm sorry, you're going to get into the buyer's list too?
I can, yeah.
Well, I have a question about, maybe it's I don't know if it's appropriate time, but let's just say you have a house under contract and you offer it to a couple buyers and none of them end up taking it. Finding reliable buyers. That's my concern. You know what I mean? You can get all the house under contract you want.
Yeah, you're new?
Not really.
I'm saying, have you done a wholesale deal?
Not wholesale, no.
Okay, all right, let me explain to you. If you start wholesaling, you will have property that you can't wholesale. You just get that in your mind.
Okay.
It's going to happen. All right, so, but that's why it's so important to understand what is a deal in your market within that particular area of your market.
That's right.
Because me and Brian and I were just talking about it on a house that I had just sent a guy, and I don't normally do this. But I have to do it anyway. I just sent a guy $500 earnest money check because I can't find a buyer for him. Whatever that sells the transaction, you know. So, I really wasn't sure about. See, some situations are going to be different because Brian, you're still not sure what that house will go for out there, right? The one in Chelsea.
The one in Chelsea?
Yeah.
I haven't seen the house, but it's, yeah, I mean, as a wholesaler, I mean, I'll let you kind of talk about this, but as a wholesaler, there are just some houses that are just in these areas you just don't. It's hard to get a good ARV on, you have repair value on. It's hard to know. That was just kind of out in the country a little bit.
Oh yeah.
So there's nothing really around it where you can kind of really pinpoint what the value is. Plus, you gotta take into, the condition of the property, you take that into account as well. So, you just never know. But as far as your question goes, here's how I say it. If you have a deal and it's a great deal, we are in what kind of market? You guys know what kind of market we're in? A buyer's market or a seller's market? We're in a heavy seller's market, right? If you have a deal that you think is a deal but you can't sell it, it's not a deal. Because people are looking for deals everywhere.
Everywhere.
And if you market it in any kind of way, people are gonna be banging down your door for that deal. So I would suggest it was probably not a deal.
That's at the end of the day, that's it. It's not hard to, I think I came up with this, it's not hard to give away money. Buyers, man, they will call you. And if you've ever done a deal with a buyer, and obviously you've made money off that deal, they will reach out to you. Do you have anything? Because like you said, it's hard to find deals, man. The easy part is to give away money, but to get someone to give you money, those are sellers. That's why I talked about lead generation, because that's the hard, in my opinion, that's the harder part, is finding the deal. I can wholesale anything, just using real estate, if I got the right price on it. I don't care. I know I can't afford, I'd like to use the Empire State Building because most people know what it is. I couldn't buy that, but if I could get it for a half, and I did look it up, Brian, it's over worth $1 billion. If I get it for a $500 million, I can wholesale it in 10 days. I'm sure I could get a Russian oligarch or a Chinese investor or somebody, or someone right there in New York City to buy it probably for $700 million or whatever, and it's worth $1.2 billion.
And you know that building was sold as a lease option before.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's how Donald Trump made his money in New York. He's a wholesaler.
Yeah.
That's it.
400 Wall was what his big deal was. 400 Wall Street.
So you sign his option.
I just want to give a tip to some of the wholesalers. Really, it's all about, there's several factors when you look for a property to wholesale. You have to buy it right to begin with. That's extremely important. Then also know your market. So it's all about the numbers. If you can get the numbers to where you have cushion there to negotiate, because sometimes other investors, they want to, of course, buy it as low as they can. So you need to have some room there for negotiation just a little bit. Know your numbers. But if you make it so tight where you can't even make any money, that's not a good deal. So it's very important to know your numbers, buy it right. That's the biggest thing right there. Buy it right.
That's it.
So I'll piggyback off that, John. I'll say it this way: if you're brand new and you want to go out there and you want to make something happen right away, I don't even think you even need to know your numbers that well. To be honest, I think you can go to Zillow, type the address into Zillow, and offer 35 to 40% of what Zillow says, and I think for the most part you're gonna come out okay.
Why do you? Go ahead, Brown.
You know what I'm saying? If you can get someone to agree to that price, you're gonna come out okay.
Oh yeah. In most cases, yeah. And just been mentioning Zillow. For I don't know why. Well, yes I do. For a long time, I'd like to refer to it as a source, and it's only going to be as accurate as the information that the county that it's pulling from is providing the information to the public and how current it is. But a lot of agents used to talk down on it or whatever, but all of them are advertising on it. You know what I'm saying? But it's a good source that's free, and it's gotten better. But it's probably ain't no price. It's the #1 source just for residential or whatever, because it just has so much data that can be used for your purposes or just doing research on. You can't just depend on it totally. But like Brian said, if it has a number there, you can dig a little deeper into seeing what other properties sold, because the maps on Zillow can be more defined and they can actually show you the houses that are sold that are close street by street to that property. And you offer 30, you can get something 30 cents on the dollar in most markets. Normally you can probably find a buyer for it, if those numbers are right. So it just boils down to the numbers. Either they work or they don't, and don't ever just fall in love with a property. Either the numbers work or they don't. Just don't waste time with people, man. Follow up is key, but you'll easily know when you're wasting time with someone. You know, don't fall in love with properties. You know.
Do you do double closes, or do you have transactional funding, or what? How do you approach it?
A lot of people. I want to hear what you say. I'm gonna tell them what I think, but.
It's your show, man.
I just like to hear what you say also. But I've done one double close in hundreds of deals in 15 years, and that was by accident. That's what the title company thought I wanted.
So how do you approach it then? What do you do?
Man, believe it or not, and Brian, do you think sellers care? Do you think
so, man?
No, I just like the other opinion. Do you think sellers care? I know what my experience is, but do you think sellers really care what you're making?
Yes, sometimes. It depends.
I'm talking about at closing though, at the closing table.
They still, yeah, they still
My
care.
wife, it doesn't. So
I've experienced that once where a seller just lost it. We still closed the deal though. And the reason she lost it, right? And she had less reason to lose it than anyone. One of my earlier deals, I brought in a friend to talk a lady down on a price because he could sell dirt to an ant. You know, he is amazing. But she initially was asking $100K. He got it down to $50K.
Wow.
With a 2-minute conversation, right? And so he had the brilliant idea. He didn't knew nothing about real estate, and that was my fault to even let him get that involved as far as trying to put the transaction together. He wanted to see if we could get the house was worth like $150, right? And so he wanted to see if we could use traditional financing and take all the equity out of that. Already, even back then, this was back in 2004, 2005, when you could get a ham sandwich financed, right? And so I knew you still couldn't do that then without buying it first, then refi it. You couldn't refi it at the closing table. And so, but anyway, so that went on for 6 months. But in that time frame, she needed money. And so he was giving her money. I was like, I'm not doing that. So after he got tired of giving her money, probably with roughly 10 grand over that time frame, but it was being reduced from the price, the amount that she was. See what happened, backstory. Her parents left her a house. The house was paid for, so $150,000 in equity. She went out and got a $25,000 equity line on the property and started making the payments. So she was about to lose it for that 25 grand. So she had back payments, she had fees not paid on the loan or whatever, and so my friend called up the payment because he wanted to go through this, process, and I told him we could move this house quickly. And so after him going through that for 6 months of dealing with her, making the payments, giving her money, it was just being subtracted from what she would have gotten at closing. So, after he realized he didn't know what he was doing, he said, "Ty, you think you can find a buyer?" Yep. We closed in 2 weeks. We got somebody to pay 80 grand for it, right? So after paying all those fees, where she should have walked away with close to around 20,000, it was only 8,000. He and I split 30,000 plus the money he had gave her, right? And so she had got to the closing early, and so the attorney broke everything down to her, right, on who's getting paid what. So when I got there, she was like, "Tyrone, this ain't right. This just ain't right. You all getting more than me, blah blah. I'm only getting $8,000." I said, "Miss Brown, Eric has been giving you money the entire time." I know, but it just don't look right." and so I said, "Mr. I told the attorney, Tom Father, he's dead now. I said, man, just go on and give her $5,000 of my money, because I was going to get, what was that, $12,500 at the time. Just give her $5,000 of money. She was going to be cool with that, as long as she had more money than somebody. He said, so this was at 5 o'clock. He already made a special exception to close the deal for us, because I did so much business with him. And he said, "Tyrone, it's going to be after 5, man. I can't go back in and do the paperwork. It's going to have to be Monday, right, before we do it." She was not leaving that close without money. So she agreed just to go ahead and just do it, and she got the $8 grand or whatever. And so that's my only experience where selling Trippe. When I go to a closing, everybody's happy. The seller's happy.
So you
Because
bring
they're
in- you
getting
bring
what
in the
they
seller
said they were
first.
going to get.
You bring in the buyer first and then the seller.
No. Everybody said that. That didn't happen with Frank because the way the buyer was out of town or whatever. The seller's getting what they said we were going to give them, right? The buyer's getting the house, he's happy. And I know I'm happy. The title company or the closing attorney is happy. That's just been my experience. So I don't know what to say.
Okay.
I can't, there's a lot of ways to do transactions as far as the double close or just straight assignment or whatever. That's just been my experience. Maybe it's the rapport that I build with them, because I don't ever get into what wholesaling is with a seller, because just like people that are actually actively trying to study it, and they still have questions, imagine me trying to explain that process to them in 5 minutes. I'll lose more deals than I take on, so, but again, it's more than one way to skin a cat or whatever. But in my experience, everybody's happy on closing day. It's just skipping, just.
So then you haven't really had a need for transactional funding then?
The only reason you need transactional funding, in my opinion, when you have an REO or something.
Yeah.
Something like that. Other than that, that's not needed.
Alabama's a state that you don't, most closing attorneys, well, I don't say most, but closing attorneys can use the buyer with the seller's money, or is it the buyer's money is given to the seller.
Right, so you don't have it to drive.
You don't have to use transactional funding. For those of you who don't know what it is, people use transactional funding to fund the deals, so you have to buy it for a double close. You would buy it and take title in your name, and then you can turn around and sell it. In the state of Alabama, especially on an assignment, you don't have to do that. We're a state where you can actually buy it with the buyer's money first, and then you can sell it to you.
Yeah, depending on your attorney and the underwriter, because I know there's some that won't do that.
No, well, of course, there are some attorneys that won't do it. But what I'm saying is, we're a state that can happen.
Yeah.
You definitely need to, get with someone like John, or get with someone like Tom or Carl in this market who knows attorneys that will do that kind of stuff. In Birmingham, we got a bunch of them. But you definitely need to know the closing attorney or closing title company that you're using.
The only time you really need the transactional funding is just like Ty said, is if you're, because some banks or, they have stipulations that you gotta live in the house, all kinds of stupid rules, which makes no sense. But you get that transactional funding so you can close in your company's name or your name and then sell it to the end buyer. That's the only time you need that money, but remember, when you're doing that, you're paying usually some points on that and a flat fee when you're using transactional funding. But yes, you can use it. It is a good tool to have, but generally for wholesaling, you don't need it. For just if you're doing with a normal seller, an owner of the property, not a company or anything, or definitely not with HUD or somebody like it, you don't really need transactional funding.
Yeah, when you say your sellers have been happy at the closing, have you divulged how much you're making?
Well, it's right there, right?
At the closing.
It's on the HUD.
Yeah, it's on the HUD. So I guess my question is, the transparency, are you informing them all ahead of time so that there's no surprises when they see the HUD?
In most cases, the first time that they see the HUD is when we show up at closing. In most cases, not always, but in most cases. And so, which I use a couple of different guys, just depending on who the buyer is. And that my fee is on the buyer side of the HUD anyway, so it's not related to them. All thing they know, they're getting the money that we agreed upon. So I guess that's why they don't care, because it's not on their side of the transaction.
They only care about what they're getting anyway. They really, honestly, they don't care about how much you really make.
Yeah.
But because if you tell them, then now you just diluted that possible transaction.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I assume most people are reasonable, which they are, and I assume that they know I'm not doing this for free. What would be an acceptable amount for me to make? I don't know what's the largest Brian has ever done on a residential, but the largest I've ever done that walked away just all mine was 40 grand. That was with Matt. Yeah, with Matt, and Matt didn't care. Well, he was about to make 100, I'm sure.
He told me he made 100.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's
yeah,
like,
has the buyer ever
yeah,
gotten that? Has
and the
ever
buyer
posted?
walked away with 100. I was a loser there.
So, yeah, so have you ever had a buyer that's questioned? Have you ever had a buyer question your fee at all?
That's only that one example
Yeah.
that I gave. Yeah, and that guy, there was a house in Homewood, and they didn't. It was no big deal or whatever. So.
Matthew told me later that he would have probably given you 100 for that deal.
And
It's like only 40?
Hey, it was the way I look at it is that he paid me $40,000 to be introduced to him, so we're continuing to do deals.
I had a buyer balk. What I was gonna make. You know what I did?
What?
Found another
Yeah, I
buyer.
was about to say, found another buyer. Yeah, that's
Found
it.
another buyer.
Yeah, so I would just say, I think it does. I think everybody. First of all, I think you said it right when you said it's about rapport.
Yeah.
You build a certain rapport with your buyer and seller, then it probably won't matter at the end of the day. I like to use a certain threshold over a certain assignment amount. I'll double close it just to hide the information from the buyer and the seller. We're gonna make 30 on 2 different wholesales coming up, and where we double closed on both of them. And then you start getting into stuff it's not really regulated in the state of Alabama right now, but it will get it'll trickle down here. There's a lot of laws being passed in Washington right now, specifically as it pertains to wholesaling. It's really kind of interesting, some of the stuff that's going down right now. Realtors are really ticked off at what's going on.
But why?
With
It
wholesalers.
came up in an army.
But I'm just telling, well, the laws are gonna get changed and they're gonna start getting enforced, and they already are across the nation. It just hasn't happened here in Alabama, but it will. So this is, the way to protect yourself is A, just disclose what you're doing, okay? And then B, you cannot market the property. You do not own the property unless you are a realtor and you're representing that owner, and you're not a broker or a realtor, you cannot market a property for sale. It's illegal. Okay, it's called brokering without a license. But what you can do, I'm not trying to say wholesaling is illegal, but what you can do is you can market what you actually have for sale, which is what? Contract. You have equitable interest. So you can market that equitable interest, even on the MLS. We usually market it on the MLS, a contract. But you have to market the contract, because that's what you own. So there's that, and then there's also the second piece to it where you said you've never double closed, or maybe only once and it was by accident. If you say, we buy houses, but you never buy a house, again, that regulation has not really come down in the state of Alabama yet. But it will, and it will get here. If you actually market yourself and you say, we buy houses, but you never take title, then that's fraud. You're operating under fraud, under fraudulent circumstances. So, and it's an easy thing to get around. All you have to do is just take title every once in a while. Don't assign every one of them. Double close a few of them every once in a while. That way your entity name or your name, whatever you buy in, when someone actually searches for you in the courthouse records, you will actually show up. Does that make sense?
I guess that's what transactional funding could help.
But you don't even need transactional funding though, because again, we're a state to where I can take my buyer's money and go buy that house. And then I can sell it to that buyer. I can use his money for
You mean the double close? That's
On a
what
double close.
Yeah, on the double close. Yeah.
But we double close, going back to Tom's point, you know, as a buyer ever balked, I've had a buyer balk as well, and that's typically, I agree with you, that's not someone I would want to do business with in the future,
Right.
but I know personally, I've got a few buyers that are gonna pay way more than some other buyers, and those, for whatever reason, those buyers care how much I make. So we'll just double close it. Yeah, they can find out later when they look it up in the courthouse records. If they do, they don't. But I just go ahead, we double close anything 10,000 or more. We'll just go ahead and double close. That's just my personal rule of thumb. Again, that's not a rule. You don't have to do that. Ty's had success doing it other ways. I wanna make sure the deal gets done. I don't wanna lose, I'd rather pay an extra few $100s for a second closing than potentially lose a big spread.
I guess my concern was whether they required being, wet with transactional funding, but you're saying it's not, so that's good.
It's not required.
Okay.
And if you do use transactional funding, remember, compute that into your costs. When you're coming up with your fee, if it's 5 points or flat fee of 2,500, whatever it is, compute that into your fees. So that you're not paying it.
I've never seen a situation in the state of Alabama where you have to use transactional funding. I've bought,
Banco.
obviously I've done that too, and we double closed. We didn't need transactional funding.
Well, they wouldn't even let you double close with this particular bank. They wanted you to own the property. They wanted
You
to
can
sit
own the
on top.
property though, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but they were looking at even, okay, when is the buyer's money coming in and stuff like that.
But that's what I'm saying is, I'm using the buyer's money.
Yeah, well, they wouldn't allow.
Then I go to a different closing attorney.
Yeah.
No,
It's
it
up
wasn't
to
that,
the
it was
closing
the
attorney.
bank.
The bank.
It was the
I've
bank,
never-
Bank of America.
So you don't use the bank?
I've never.
It was their property. It was their property.
And we're getting into kind of some really
Yeah,
deep weeds
sorry.
right here. But I don't think it really.
Yeah.
So how would you market the contract if you don't have a buyer's list? If you're new to the game, get a property on the contract.
You call other wholesalers, we buy house signs.
Call me.
Obviously Craigslist, banner signs work on those also to create a buyer's list. If you put out signs in an area where the house exists, not on the property per se, but in that area, just handwritten signs if they're done okay. House for sale, and let me ask you this, Brian, since you get into the legalities of that. If I say house for sale, 30,000 cash, I didn't say that house.
Do you have a house for sale?
Well, I could, I guess, technically, and then I just always have one for sale, and then say, oh, I got this other one that you can buy the contract on.
But here's I think you're missing the bigger picture is like, especially if you're talking about who's gonna buy your houses, who's gonna buy your deals?
Investors.
Investors.
Mhm.
Do investors know that wholesaling exists?
Yeah.
Most do.
Do investors know about wholesalers?
Yeah.
Are some investors
We're looking for.
glad to use a wholesaler and pay them a fee?
Plenty of them are.
They're glad to do it.
Yeah.
So I think it doesn't even matter, why not just be safe? If you say I have a contract for sale and here's the address, here's a couple pictures, any investor's gonna be like, I get it, I understand what he's
Yeah.
doing, he's just actually saying it correctly.
Yeah.
So I don't even think it matters.
Well, I guess the thing about it for me on that side of it, when I say I have a contract for sale, I guess you could still put the price of the contract as the total amount.
You mark it up.
Yeah, well,
Your contract
yeah,
is
so
for-
you're not saying I got an assignment, this is my assignment fee.
You're not gonna say, I have an assignment fee,
Yeah,
you're not
yeah.
gonna get into all that.
Yeah, you don't get all that, okay, yeah, so, but to answer your question about finding buyers, assuming that you're not advertising the property, but, yeah, so signs you could put out, whatever, and, meetings like these.
Yeah, attend a RIA. Just
Yeah,
attend a RIA.
yeah, the RIA, a good RIA, which Brian has started, not to talk about anybody else's RIA, some of them not
Yeah.
as good as others now,
Yeah.
or whatever, because nobody in there be investor minded in the sense of what you're talking, they all of them are frowned on, you buying from you or whatever, so, but meetings like these, you probably wouldn't have to even go even further than this, or whatever. In a lot of cases, in some cities, like in Birmingham, Brian has 200, 300 people show up. Some real players in there, or whatever. So, you can actually use some agents. You're gonna have some investor-minded agents. You just have to, probably go through a few to get those. So there's gonna be multiple. It's not gonna be hard to get rid of a deal, man. It's not. It's just not.
I want you to talk about the power of social media, content, videos, why you do what you do, the setup you got going on right now. You're on YouTube Live right now. Just talk about that and what that does for your business.
Well, for me, understand this stuff is a hobby for me, so I understand it more than most, right? I understand when you put a title on something, how important that is for you to get found. The thumbnail that you use on your videos, being able to take, I never go out to a property, and I've been doing this for years, but I never go out. People say, well, send me the photos of it or whatever, and I just send them a video of the property. And so, because who doesn't have a smartphone? I tell people, you don't have a smartphone, you're not serious about this business. It just is. They're too cheap or whatever. The plans are too cheap. And so what it does for your business is that you go out and video a property, you upload to YouTube, that's free, right? And now, so when a potential buyer contacts you, you can send out a video of the property. That saves you time, saves him time, because he may not be interested in it, or he may be even more interested in it, even though you've given him the price of your contract or whatever for this particular property. And so, so for me, you know, it's like everything as far as my marketing, you know, the internet and social media, that's still a new animal for me, even though I have a strong presence. When I say that, I'm really referring to Facebook and Instagram. And but finding leads, I haven't figured out a way more so to find leads with both, more so than to find buyers with both or whatever. So it just depends on what angle you're coming from, but it, you know, the internet, man, just everything. You know what I'm saying? You just gotta have a presence in some form of fashion. It's just a tool now. Understand, it's just a tool. It's not gonna do deals for you, but it's just so many resources and just different softwares and programs that you can use just to make your business a lot easier to perform. You know, understand you still gotta put the work in. They're just tools to make that happen. So.
Anybody else have any questions for Ty, Mr. Flipman?
One more. Do you tell your seller that you may not be the one closing the deal on an assignment?
Some people do that. I don't ever get into that. I'd say we, you know what I'm saying, we'll close on the house.
Will, okay.
Okay, and so now, and it's rare that the seller and the buyer are not at my transactions. I love it when a seller's out of town. I love it. You know what I'm saying? Oh no, you don't have to come down. We use technology to get you to, you know, either email with a DocuSign or e-signature, or they'll do a mail, you know, where they get it notarized and overnight, you know, back to the closing attorney or whatever. But for the most part, everybody's sitting there. So we walk in, I'm normally there early or whatever, and so when this is the first time they've ever met. And so my buyer, you know, he's on my team because he wants me to feed him more deals. I'm like, hey, Mr. Seller, this is my partner on this deal, Mr. Buyer.
So even if you've assigned the contract, you show up at the closing?
Oh yeah, I do.
Okay.
What else I do? I go pick up a check.
See, I think what's really interesting here is Ty has a completely different way of doing things than I do. I have a different take on that even. Like we both do, and we're both successful doing what we're doing. I think that the point there is there's so many different ways to do this business.
That's what's great about it.
So many different ways.
If an unorganized, shy person like myself can do it and actually make a living doing it, anybody can do it.
So what do you get at closing? You get a check?
Yeah, I get a check.
I never get a check.
Yeah, I get a check.
I don't want to wait on a check.
Wow.
I get it wired, I spend $20 and the money's in my
Well,
account.
see, with me,
Instantly, and I don't go to the closings. I sign everything, I pre-sign everything ahead of time, and it's already done, and I never go to a closing.
hey, where with me, that's the highlight of my day. That's the highlight of my day. I'm going to a closing. What can be done?
I'm doing other deals. I got other deals cooking. I'm sure.
After, that's probably true. I don't. So I'm going to a closing. I'm going to a closing, and then after I'm either going to the fish market and sit down and eat meat with my normal good meat. They already know what I want when I get there. You know what I'm saying? So what else do I have to do? You know, So, hey, he's making so much money, just another $15,000, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Whereas Tyrone, I pick up my 15, I'm happy. You know? Okay, let me put my marketing back in play or whatever, but you know, I have deals coming. Whatever. It's just different. We're just different. Or whatever.
He's got an internet business he's running.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh boy.
I just think it's really interesting. I want you to, Ty, because we got a couple more minutes. You guys good? Yeah. You guys don't care if I ask him some questions?
Okay.
Because I think that this is a really interesting thing that you got going. I know you were talking about to try to find sellers and try to market properties, but I'm interested to know everything you got set up here, the live stream that we got going on right now, that people are watching this, and I was just looking, there's 100 or so people on this call that are watching this. They're watching right now live.
Yeah.
Because of him, 29,000 followers or subscribers on YouTube and growing constantly. Obviously that's credibility wise, instant credibility, but you've been doing this for a long time. What does that do for your real estate business?
You know what? I don't really feel that I've capitalized on it in that sense. I'm about to start to, and I don't even know why, because that was my initial intent on doing it the way I do it, because I give all the information away. You know, one of the reasons I decided to give the information away, because anytime I try to do something, I'm rarely going to invent anything, so I'm going to see something that someone else is doing. So, oh man, it's brilliant. You know, and I got something from you, and I thought it was brilliant when you had the 222 number, right? You all were doing the cable ties. I wasn't doing that before that.
Yeah, he stole that.
I stole that, you know what I'm saying? Brilliant, you know. Now, I promoted all over the country, you know, since then, but whenever I started to put content out there, I say everybody's out there talking about how much money they make. Okay, that's good, but how do you make the money or whatever? So I said, I'll just feel my guts. Those that want to take the information and run with it, and tons of people have, and I've never spoke to, I just get text message, hey, thank you, you know, boom. And they show me a check for $12,000. I've never even talked to them before or whatever. And then I have my students, people that want to deal directly with me. So as far as me capitalizing off of that, initially when I put, again, that's one of the reasons why I put the free content out there. The other thing is because I want, commercial real estate, right? That's really where I want to be, right? And so I felt that if I put enough like-minded people, especially people that have spent their hard-earned money with me, I can have people in Atlanta, Chicago, New York, LA, Seattle, just wherever. And if I see a piece of commercial real estate, I can reach out to them and say, go look at this property, what do you think about it? And we can just share in the deal. That was the overall goal. And slowly getting there, because I have done a few, but that was the overall goal of why I put it out there the way I put it out there, to build a following, give away a lot of good, I think, valuable content that people can actually use to produce income and possibly change their financial situation.
What does it mean when you see someone send you a text or a picture of a big check, and you know that all you did was put out content? They never reached out to you for specific one-on-one coaching or anything like that. They just get a check. Then you see it.
It makes my day, man. Literally, it makes my day. Outside of me having it in my hand, it makes my day, man. Hey, like, people, this is real. It is real. Not and a couple of my friends, and I hope I'm putting this out there, people that start poking me. But when someone comes at me on my channel or something like that and say that I'm scamming them, I get really bothered by that.
Yeah.
Like, now, what else do you want me to do? You know what I'm saying? All this free content, what else do you want me to do? This lady said that I was rude to her when she called me. I may have been, because I'm human. I have bad days, I have relationships, bills, family. You just may have caught me at a bad time, and my tone was probably not what you were expecting, because what you see on the video, I may have, because I don't even remember what she's talking about. But to say that, she's used a lot of other stuff or whatever, that just really bothered me because I put a lot of time into this stuff. Not saying I don't make money from it, because I do, but I think I give more than what I'm getting out of it. Let me just say that, and in that sense. Which that's fine, because that was my intent or whatever. So, I need to get thicker skin is what I've been told. It doesn't happen at all. Maybe if it happened more, I would get used to it, but it doesn't happen at all. So,
Well, we appreciate you, Ty.
Yeah.
Get Ty.